As Asta said, Rad Grafiński, I'm from Delinea, covering the channel infrastructure network for the Central Europe and Central Asia. So I will be the first one today talking a bit about the evolution of the identity management and how this evolution impacted the cybersecurity market. So what we see right now is that really everything is moving into the cloud and IT infrastructure. So everything has a kind of identity. We're not talking only about the physical users, about admins, about on-site, on-premise servers or laptops, but we see exponential growing of the number of the IoT devices with some kind of identity. Um, some microservices which are communicating with each other inside of our networks, each of them having kind of identity. And of course, the number of the identities each of us as a human is carrying in our systems is also growing because we have separate identities for different systems. Some of them are our internal, another are from the cloud or from another some kind of a solution provider. And in each of the systems, we keep some kind of identity. So possibility of breaking any of these identities cause a possibility to have a break through our entire network. Because if somebody will break, for example, my password in one of the systems, and very often we know that number of the password each of us is keeping is somehow limited. So it is very possible that a hacker can try to use the same credentials from me and try to break to another system where I can have a login. So if we have a system which is just touching the identity management and security of the identities only in some of the areas here and not covering everything together, this system is simply not working properly, because then hackers can try to enter through another angle of our system, and then from this try to do lateral movement from one system to another using the credential they already break. So with a broken credential, then we don't know later if they do something wrong or not, because they are using the proper credentials in our systems. So we have to cover actually all of the identities. We say actually these days that every credential is a privileged credential, and we have covered everything together and not with the isolated systems. And this is also true if we talk about traditional PAM system, privilege account management. So traditional PAM systems were focusing on on-premise servers and on-premise workstations, and mainly privileged users like admins. This is, let's say, legacy type of a PAN system, which these days, as we already said, doesn't work that much, because still we can have people who are not in the group of admin guys, but in some systems they can keep very high level of privileges, and breaking their accounts can also cause a lot of damage to our system. Kind of a, let's say, example for this is maybe the person from the financial department who is responsible for doing the payments of the AWS usage a month, right? So this person in AWS, even though he is responsible for doing the checking of the bill each month and then do the payments of it, have exactly the same level of the privileges as a root. So if somebody will steal the credentials of this person into the AWS, then you are able to issue another virtual appliance, another machine, so you can do whatever you want to do. And still, this person is from the from the financial department, not techie IT guy. So as said, all of these credentials should be covered, and that's why we are now talking more about extended PAM or XPM, where we cover all of the credentials, both human and non-human, inside of our network. And we are talking about coverage of the systems, both on-premise as well as in cloud. If we can, secure our network, our systems in the cloud and on-premise, and the human and non-human identities, then we can say that our system is somehow covering us properly in terms of managing the identities. And bit of what we already see in the cybersecurity landscape. So exactly last years, as we all know, ransomware is a kind of a king, right? And number of ransomware attacks is growing, and also profitability is growing. And so from one of the reports from 2020 from IBM, they saw that the profit of the ransomware attacks is growing. But also what's even more scary for me is that, ransomware is not an especially sophisticated kind of attack done by some very smart hacker sitting somewhere in his dark room. No, ransomware is available as a service right now. You can simply go to darknet. You can just put the name of the domain address which you want to start attacking. You pay for it. You define the size of a ransom you want to take out of it. That's it. That's what you have to do. So this is not a sophisticated attack. It is just a business done by some criminals, very easily to start and very easily to attack some company. What's also is important that when in the last couple of years when we were talking about preparing our company to be ready in case of being attacked by ransomware attack, all of our customers mainly were talking about the backup systems, right? So in case of being attacked, we have everything in the backup. We can then, not we don't have to pay the ransom because we have in the backup, we restore from the backup and you can work. This is true. So also attackers, they are not blind. So what they are doing right now, they not only block you access to your data in your systems, but they also copy those data into their locations. And then they are putting those data on the darknet again. So not only they are treating you that if you will not pay them, you will not be able to use your systems, but also they say, okay, if you don't pay me, I will sell your data somewhere else to your competition maybe, or even maybe if I will put it open into some portal, then I will ruin your position on your market. Together with Tommy, we had a chance to participate in the conference couple of weeks ago where we saw simulated attack on the company and how easy you can start this attack. And then we saw on the darknet what we can find it there. And really, for example, we were able to find the data from the stolen data from some medical companies from Poland. So this kind of a data not only cause company to lose their profitability and their position on the market, but also cause us as a regular people to be influenced by this kind of attacks, that our personal data is stolen and then provided openly to the market. Another quite important analysis done by Microsoft, over 20 millions of devices work in our networks is still with the standard admin kind of a credentials and passwords. So, and we usually don't think too much about these devices, right? Some kind of a, Wi-Fi controller maybe works somewhere in our network, but if somebody will break through to this device and will start, for example, monitoring the what's going on, what's flowing through our networks, this also can cause us a lot of a damage. And of course, companies are not working independently in the silos. So these days, each of the attack is also causing entire supply chain. So it's not only cause us as our company to be attacked, but also cause the company who is providing for us some goods, for example, because they cannot sell it to us because we are blocked. And we also cannot provide maybe some of our products which are then used by another company to produce their own goods, and they are also impacted by this attack because then they cannot produce their own goods because they are blocked by us. And last part on the slide, that still Linuxes and Unix systems are considered as more secure than Microsoft. However, we see also growing the number of the new attacks on the Linux. So even though these platforms are more secure in terms of the malware, but we also see growing number of the attacks, especially done for the Linuxes. And when you consider how many Linux devices we have in the cloud, which is mainly on the Linux, then also this number is growing heavily. And how it's related to the privilege management or the identity management. From the Forrester, 80% of all breaches involve the privilege account. So somebody somewhere got an access to one of the privilege account and then started to move inside of our network, attacking another and then another system until they reached to some system where they could steal some data. 85 of the attacks were also using the compromised endpoints. So even if we consider, okay, I have some laptops in our network and my user, they use some laptops, but this is just a laptop. They use just a couple of the applications. That's it. It's not that much true. Still, if we can compromise the account on this endpoint, then hacker can start doing the travel to our network, starting from this, just from this endpoint. And quite important message from Microsoft again, that 96% of the vulnerabilities we found on the Windows platform could be mitigated and cannot be used to propagate the attack in our network just by removing the local administrative rights. So one simple, relatively simple solution can, limit a lot of the attacks which are then propagated in our network. So what modern PAM system should provide us as a users? Of course, we need to have a place where we should store the passwords. This is still important, and this is like a basic functionality which each PAM or XPAM system should provide. But this is just the one step. This is not everything. This is just one functionality. Of course, we should be able to verify who has an access to this secret, to this credential, password, however we'll call it, but we have to verify each time who is this person, because as we already said, maybe somebody broke through on another device and has stolen some password and now tries to use this password to access to our PAM system maybe, right? So we have to be able to verify who really is this person. Then we need to be able to create kind of a context around of our users. So again, as we were talking about this person from the financial department accessing 2 times a month to our AWS infrastructure. So we know that, okay, he's doing this 2 times a month, right? Checking the bill, then do the payment. So if we will see that maybe somebody using these credentials, logging properly into our system, logged, on the completely different time zone and from the completely different country, maybe, then this is not the standard habit of this person. So we should be able to eliminate these kind of behaviors and block it immediately to not let the attack spread in our network. Of course, still admin guys and their environment is like kingdom, like a keys to the kingdom in our system. So we still need for the disaster recovery solutions to have the safe place where we are storing the credential for the admin people. So we still have to have it and keep it for those disaster recovery situations. However, in the standard way of working of our people, we want to introduce least privilege politics. So we want to have users log in with their own personal accounts to the systems with the least privilege, and only in the moment when they need to do some privilege command, then system will allow or disallow them of doing this action or not. And of course, we need to be able to audit everything, because in case of something will happen in our system, we need to see what was done, by whom, and when. And with the adaptive control, so to be able to apply the management rules to particular people and particular action inside of our network. And of course, we understand that not every customer is the same, and our customers are in the different let's say, stage of their travel through XPM kind of a system. So that's why Delinea is not a producer of one large systems covering everything from the beginning. No, we understand that our customers, they may have different reasons why they entered into the PAM systems, and they can have already different systems already working on their infrastructure. That's why we have small pieces working together to create the entire system. So on the phase one, we usually talk with our customers about, adding visibility, adding reporting, and to monitor the access to the network, to monitor the privileges. We start talking about vaulting. So this is usually on the stage one, we talk about vaulting. We, of course, are talking about, building the workflows for the accessing the privileged accounts, both for the local and remote users. And of course, we are implementing the first stage of MFA, multi-factor authentications. But we also may have customers who already have kind of vault systems, and they want to go further to the next steps of the managing the identities in their network. So here, usually, we are talking about building some more advanced systems to manage and discover local accounts on the platforms like Linux, Unixes, and Windows. We are talking now about privilege elevation. So not just having our people log into the admin account, but we want them to log into their own personal account to the particular system, and only in the moment when some privileges are needed, system will allow them to do the privilege command or not based on the role. And we want to, at the end, eliminate admin accounts from the general usage. As I said, we always have the situation like disaster recovery situation when we need to grant to someone admin privileges. So that's why Vault is always needed, because somewhere we have to store these privileges for such a use. But on the everyday work of these people, they don't need it. So we want just having them accessing with their own accounts with the least privilege, and only raise up their privileges when it's needed to do particular action. And on this stage, usually we are talking also about the automation of the DevOps systems. When our customers may have some big DevOps departments, then we also cover DevOps environments to manage the identities. And at the end, when our customers have already built their XPM environments, we are also talking about building the behavior analytics systems. So we introduce the machine learning solutions to define the behavior of the people, and then to search for the actions which doesn't apply to their everyday work. And we also are talking here about the managing of the service accounts and the governance of the service accounts. And as I said, we as Delinea, we are not the producer of the one large appliance, virtual or the physical. We are producing the software. So we have dedicated solutions for each of the stage where you are or where you want to be. Our solutions are also built the way to work with the solutions from our competitors. So very often when we are talking with our customers, for example, about enhanced phase, about the least privilege and the privilege elevation solutions, about AD bridging, we very often integrate with the vaulting provided already by another vendor on the stage one. And I will not be talking about all of these products because it would take us probably next 3 hours. However, just a couple of the names. A secret server is our let's say, full PAM solution, providing all of the solutions, all of the functionalities you can expect from the PAM system, with add-ons like Connection Manager and Remote Access Service. And then DevOps Secret Vault is a dedicated add-on for the massive DevOps environment. Then when we talk about enhanced phase, we are having here 3 additional solutions: Cloud Suite, Server Suite, and the Privilege Manager. All of them provides the privilege elevation solutions. And today we will be mainly talking about this phase, so I will not take too much time on this phase because Tomek will be covering this. All of them provide privilege elevation solutions. Cloud Suite mainly dedicated to the massive cloud environment, the Server Suite focusing on the on-premise servers, and the Privilege Manager for the desktops and endpoints. And then on the phase 3 for the adaptive solutions, we are providing privilege behavior analytics. So this is this module doing the machine learning to analyze the behavior of our people, to build a scenario of their behaviors, and then when we will see some action which doesn't fit into their standard behavior, to cause some actions like maybe blocking access to this person, or maybe reissuing the MFA request to them, or maybe sending some ticket to the help desk. And then Account Lifecycle Manager solution dedicated to the large environments where we need to automatically search, discover, and then monitor and maintain the service accounts. So that's basically what Delinea is providing to our customers. And one last slide regarding what other companies are talking about PAM systems and XPMs. So here we have like 2 information from Gartners. So organizations that use privilege task automation features will save 40% on staff costs. So simply we eliminate, every day we eliminate some actions done by our IT management guys where they do every day same action, and they can focus on more advanced actions they do for us. And also second, those who will eliminate standing privileges will experience 80% fewer privilege breaches than those that don't. So as you see, Gartner puts a lot of pressure on our customers to really invent this kind of a solution into their network, because simply it saves them a lot of problems for us. And yes, who is this Delinea? So Delinea is a relatively new name on the market. We started to be present on the market as Delinea in the previous February. So we just passed 1 year on the market. However, Delinea was created by 2 companies which merged together, 2 leaders on the PAM system. So it was Thycotic and Centrify. And after half a year, they decided to change the name to Delinea. So we are a new company on the market, but in the reality, we are not new. So we are leaders in all of the main analytics reports like Gartner, Forrester, and the Kumpinger as well. We are growing quite fast, so we are adding, even in 2021, which was quite difficult year actually for everybody because of the pandemic situation, we managed to add over 1,000 of the new customers. We have very good ranking done by the customer satisfactions. So 4.8 out of 5, which is a very, very good number. And also we provide out of the box a lot of integrations. So our solutions are relatively easy to implement because out of the box you can integrate it with many solutions you already use in your network. And last slide from me. So our customers. So as you can see, there is a couple of very known names, like from the technology space. IBM is our customer. Palo Alto Networks is our customer. Cisco is our customer as well. SAP is our customer as well in this space. But also for me, a couple of nice names from the public sector, NIST and the Department of Defense from USA. This is kind of a very good reference. If you consider that NIST being agency which provide the references for the cybersecurity to other public institutions from the US market, is using our system by itself, it's, in my opinion, one of the best reference we can have. So that's it in my part as a kind of introduction to the main session, which will be driven by Tomek right now. Let me check if there are any questions.
Thanks, Radek. Yes, there are. So Tomasz already replied about
Yeah. Why
local
we are better
account
than
password solution.
CyberArk? This is a cool question.
Okay.
If I can answer.
So let's start with that one.
Yes, CyberArk is a great solution. There is no doubt about this. CyberArk, as we are, in the same quadrant, in the Magic Quadrant from Gartner. They are also one of the leaders. If I can say something, what I really like here in our in Delinea is that, first of all, because we are software only, we are not providing this kind of appliance idea, which means not everything is embedded inside of this appliance. It means that it's way easier to implement us, especially when you move from, let's say, one virtual appliance to another virtual appliance because of some needs of the performance, for example, or you are growing your environment. In our case, you simply add the license, and if it's needed, you provide more power, computing power below. In the case of the appliance, scenarios, you have to switch from appliance to another appliance. So this is not always that easy. And also, I would say that in terms of performance needs, we are way lighter solution than CyberArk. This is probably coming again from the same, idea of building appliance. Because if you build appliance, even virtual, then you have everything below. So you take it for good and for bad, right? So when you just have a software like us, you don't have this issue with the scalability. So this, in my opinion, is the biggest difference between us and them. Nevertheless, as I said, they are very good vendor. And also, to be very honest, what I mentioned, that we are not providing just one solution covering all of the features I was mentioning earlier. We have like modules which can work together between themselves, but also can integrate with a heterogeneous solution. So when we check worldwide, we have a lot of installations of our systems where the privilege elevation and AD bridging systems are done by us, but we are integrating with the Vault done by CyberArk. So we also have a lot of this kind of implementations. So I don't know if we fully answered the question. But that's my view.
You need to test Delinea. So if you
Always,
have experience
yeah.
with CyberArk, then you should test Delinea, and you will see what are differences and why maybe Delinea is in some points better. Then there was a question about local account password solution, but thanks, Tomasz, you answered it, so it's in a chat. But yeah, sometimes we hear that Delinea is compared with these credential management tools like password vaults, password managers. So what are the Delinea's advantages, maybe comparing to these tools?
Yeah, so password manager is of course needed, but it is just small sub part of what we are talking with the XPM or PAM solution. So if we talk about something like password manager, this can be comparable to our secret server free version, which is just password manager. If for somebody it is enough, then okay, let's use the secret server free version. However, as you saw probably in my slides, this vaulting is just small piece of everything we are talking about here, because then you need to the privilege elevation, then of course you need auditing and the recording, right, of the sessions. Then you need to provide the password change systems. You need to have a check-in, check-out functionalities, and lots of more and more of this kind of features which password manager is not covering. So if somebody consider PAM to being just a password manager, so this is just a small piece of the functionality we cover.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. If anyone has questions,
Yeah, I'm staying on the chat right now,
yeah.
and I will still till the end. So if you have additional question to me during the Tomek session, I will be happy to answer.
Yep. Okay, so we can switch to Tomek then.
Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen here. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. So for this section of the, I'm going to do a quick presentation about Server Suite or Server PAM. And then I'm going to do more of a technical demo, actually show you live what the benefits, what the system actually does, and what some of the meanings actually do. So some of the questions that you had, you know, which vendor is better, you know, for example, or is, you know, local account password management better? But that's basically what it's going to cover. So but I'd like to show you the screen, and I'm not going to go through all of this in detail. Let me minimize one of my screens here. Okay, perfect. What I'm going to focus during this session is on the enhanced part. So phase 2. Now, why am I going to focus on that? Because most of you, you know, there's some of the questions we've heard about password vaults, right? We know what password vaults are. We know what PAM systems are. But there's something really interesting that I found out. Delinea, with the merger of Thycotic and Centrify. Centrify is a company that wasn't very well known, especially in Europe, anywhere in Europe. And it has products that I think are going to be where the future is taking us. And I'll talk about that in a second here. So let's continue here. One of my famous quotes, I hate this, but I always put this in. Even if you could create the best defense in death, right? Best security, best everything, best firewalls and everything. Your weakest link is always going to be your employee, right? 15% of employees would sell their credentials for less than $1,000. And that's actually true. You can go any company anywhere in the world, and I bet you'll find one employee that's going to sell it. So there's your weak link. And this is kind of the reason I'm talking about this, is because it's going to be how we get into what Server PAM does. So covering that, okay, we can sell privileges. Any single company, right? They have all of this, and I'll let this populate through as I'm talking. So challenges in managing privileges. What are privileges? Privileges isn't just password anymore. As Radek mentioned, it's everything. It's how do we get into systems, right? It can be certificates. It can be all these different type of secrets. That's why we call them secrets and secret server in our PAM. And one of the biggest challenges any company has, so when you're a customer, when you're a vendor, when you're anybody that is running any IT, you always want to focus, okay, how much is going to cost me, right? Great question about, you know, CyberArk and Delinea. The operational effort, you know, if you've ever done an upgrade of any of the PAM systems, take a look at Delinea, how easy it is to upgrade a Delinea system, right? But why is that important? So I worked for a very long time as a partner, and then before joining Delinea, I worked as a Cisco at Cisco Systems, working on a firewall. If you've ever worked or seen Cisco Systems and you upgrade their firewalls, right? It's pain in the butt. It's difficult. It's not easy. But it costs money because you have to hire consultants. You have to get everybody. So anyway, privileges and operational effort. And for me, this is really how I started with what privileges actually are. So users with local admin rights, it's a huge security risk, right? Then we have local Unix account management. Linux users have always been treated special, right? They're smarter than anybody, and Linux users, they know how to script, bash scripts and all that stuff, and they know how to, you know, they'll do sudo commands that, you know, most of the Windows users I've never heard of, and all this other stuff, right? There's always a competition. But, you know, ransomware affects Linux, and that's true. Macs, anything. Ransomware is basically everywhere nowadays. So the other thing is lack of visibility or staff turnovers, right? All of this has how much money are we going to spend into it. So why do I want to talk about Server Suite? And what is Server Suite? So Microsoft versus Linux. Started talking about this. So we have users, we have roles, we have groups, we have group policies. Microsoft makes it clean, right? We install AD, And with AD, any system that's connected to our AD, we can push GPOs, we can set up users, we can set up roles and all that stuff. And it's easy. We tell people, okay, you can log in here, you cannot log in there. And it works awesome. One user account, unless you're an admin, right? Microsoft best practice, you have a alternative account, right? So you have a user-A account for administrative stuff. But it makes it pretty clean. Linux, I mean, you basically, if you set up a server in 2005, you could have used something, you know, username, password one way. You set up another one and, you know, a few years later, you could have used it differently, or a different admin did it, who likes things differently. There's no standardization. And yes, you can script a few things. So I'm not going to bash on any other Linux. I am a Linux guy. I came from OpenStack before that. So since 2014, running my own. And I can tell you, you have to be more creative. Let's call it that. So Server Suite creates this amazing thing for us, right? It's AD bridging. Now, what AD bridging, we've heard of this concept before, or maybe some of you have heard of it. Red Hat, Ubuntu started doing it recently, where we can join through Kerbals, we can join Linux machines to AD. Great solution, right? We can basically use our single account and start using it within Linux. The thing about Delinea's AD bridging is it's been around because of Centrify for quite a long time. If you actually Google Centrify AD bridging, you'll see it. It goes back way long before anybody's done it. And the reason is because their AD bridging isn't just about connecting it to the AD. It's about importing local accounts. So for example, if you have a Linux server that's been running for 10 years and you have a bunch of local accounts, you can connect those local accounts to the AD. You do this one time, and then you basically can create policies. But also, we install AD bridging on Windows. And everybody's like, okay, well, why? We already have AD on Windows, right? Because we can extend the features of AD from Windows in Linux, that we can do more things with it. And I'll talk about exactly what we can do. So AD bridging isn't Server Suite. It's kind of like a little product feature of it. And that's what I'm going to talk about, the use cases. So by installing our little AD bridging agent on Windows and Linux servers, and focus on servers at this point, we can then basically get local accounts and group management unified. Why is this important? Ransomware, right? As Radek mentioned, we went to this great, amazing class a few weeks ago, where it was done on a live demo, and it was through an EDR vendor. I can't remember their name, but it was an EDR vendor. And they were showing us basically in live demonstration how easy it is to steal the hash. Let's say you have a local user admin account, or even a domain admin account that logged into a server. And they were able to find through hashing, find the credentials and be able to log in. Okay. Through Server Suite, we unify all the local accounts. We basically map local accounts to Active Directory accounts. Why is this important? You basically don't have so much privilege all over the place. The biggest issue right now we have is we have passwords over passwords over passwords. And it creates a lot of different ways. How do we manage them, right? So PAM is the first solution, right? We start putting all those passwords into some sort of a containerized, and we can basically just start rotating those passwords, but it still creates a risk. We have too many of them. So here we basically map everything together. Then Server Suite has server zone technology. Now, most of you, if some of you have heard this zone technology. Palo Alto does this amazing zone technology, right? Where they separate all the different, I would say, networks into zones. But also, different vendors have started doing what they call, VLANs, or different kind of technology where you can do macro segmentation. That's basically what we're doing here with servers. When you connect the servers, we can separate them into different zones, right? We can do Linux zones, Unix zones, Windows zones, or for example, you can do it by roles, Apache servers, or let's say web servers, database servers. Why is this important? Because you can create different policies and role-based access per those zones. So for example, why would you need an administrator from database logging into a server that is for HR or file server, right? You can now separate. So that admin, even though he has an admin account, does not need to get access into certain servers. Server-side group policy. So AD bridging, as I mentioned, has more enhancements. We can actually push GPO policies onto Linux. We can put things and shut down ports, make them all unified. Why is this important? Let's say you have cybersecurity insurance needs, your bank, your government, or anybody. And for all of a sudden, more and more people are starting to force, through corporate that you're going to need cybersecurity insurance. If you can push GPO policy, that's one way to validate. Microsoft has been doing this a long time. They say through GPO, we can basically push policy into all of our servers, and that's how we locked all the machines down. That's how we lock ports down or services. Well, now we can do it with Linux. But not only Linux, our AD bridging installed on Windows, we actually have enhancements for GPO policy that we can do on top of Windows standard policies. Okay. And then the feature that basically covers server PAM, privilege elevation. So most of you have heard of zero trust networks or ZTNA, right? Server-side privilege is exactly that. What that means is that everybody is non-trusted. Every user is a standard user. So Microsoft has this thing that when you hire an admin, you have to create them 2 accounts. One a standard account, one an alternative admin account. Now, with Delinea, you don't have to do that. Everybody is going to be ZTNA or least privilege. So they're all going to be standard users. And your admins are going to have access based on services, based on what they need access to, not just Windows, but also Linux. So if you have an admin who manages MySQL database or Apache, and he needs to get into that Linux server, he's going to be able to do sudo and restart, shut down Apache. On Windows, I'll show you this in the demo. If you need to make firewall changes, you can make firewall changes, but not by running as admin. Why is this important? Going back to the EDR system, we will never hash any single local domain admin accounts on there. Important, no one will get access to your Active Directory. And then the most important feature, right? Session recording and auditing. There is no tool from AD bridging that is able to record or audit any of the sessions. Now, what is this important? Well, let's say you have a contractor, right? Somebody who is a third party and they're supposed to, you hire them to work on a Linux server or Windows server for the next, 3 months to fix something or make updates or upgrades to databases. You can actually see recordings, what they were doing. Not only that, through this, we can actually search and query specific commands. So for example, let's say you have we'll make it simple, 100 servers. How easy or how much time is it going to cost you to tell one of your employees to say, I need you to find out who ran this command in our network, but I don't know which server it's on, and I don't know, who ran it. With our auditing tool, we can basically figure out exactly who ran a command on Linux or Windows or used an open application or anything like that, because we can query all of that. Okay, even if they do it under sudo, very important there. So this solution works basically in any single location, hybrid location. It's deployed on-prem, cloud, however you want it. The most important features that I always tell people, it's multi-directory brokering, basically AD bridging, privilege elevation, just-in-time access. I haven't talked about that yet, and I'll talk about it in a second, NMFA, and audit monitoring. So far I've covered basically 3 out of 5 things I want everybody to focus. Why is this important? The solution scales easily, and it basically is able to deploy anywhere. We're not appliances, we're not hardware, it's software. All you have to do is deploy the agent, and the agent takes care of everything. Now, Server PAM is the product. We have 2 products in there, Cloud Suite and Server Suite. Cloud Suite provides basically 2 things for us. We can enforce MFA. Now, everybody says, okay, well, we can do MFA on login. True. But can you do MFA on running an application? Can you do MFA on, let's say you want to do sudo reboot Apache? So you enforce MFA per service, not only per service, per application. We can do every single per user, per application, however you want. It's very granular. Now people think, okay, well, this is not very important for us yet. We don't want to do it because people are going to get mad. It's not our daily job. True, but MFA is becoming more and more required by all the government agencies around the world, right? NIST in Europe, I think 2030 is going to start enforcing MFA at login and also per application. Why is this important? A few months ago, there was if you read the news and everything about cybersecurity, there was an incident. Somebody was able to basically gain access because their Chrome browser wasn't updated. They hacked into their local browser that had passwords, and they found the password to the server or to the workplace. And so they were able to access the work server or workstation at work because they had credentials. And then from there, they were able to get to the server and then steal and mine all the data. Now, if you had MFA per application, not just login, let's say somebody wanted to get into and restart application or shut down services, then all of a sudden, hey, if you steal my password, I still need to verify it through Duo, YubiKey, SMS, whatever. It's all of them are supported. And this is the zero trust concept again. Reduce just-in-time zero standing privilege, or reduce just-in-time and zero standing. What does this mean? It means, let's say you have a contractor who all of a sudden something shuts down and you need to give him access last minute into a system because they need access to, let's say, a Linux server or something's breaking. You can provide just in time, which means at that moment, you as a manager can grant them access into an environment that they've never been to, while still enforcing MFA, while still enforcing everything. What does this mean? Zero standing privilege. No, everybody is non-trusted, ZTNA. They're not trusted. We can basically give them access to when they need it. The most important thing is I'm actually testing a use case with our Cloud Suite right now. Very popular term. We've done this recently. Everybody's trying to do this is passwordless login, right? Login into a system without password using just MFA. We did our first use case last week. I'm still building a demo, so I don't have it ready, but it works. What does this mean? You can log into servers with just MFA, username, MFA, and you're done. Or restart application. So passwordless is here and it's going to work. Perfect. Really quickly, Server Suite comparison to Cloud Suite. It is the same product, just runs a little bit differently. Server Suite is AD. All servers have to join AD. Roles and privileges stored in AD. And also it supports Solaris, it supports AIX, it supports Z-Linux, HPUX, it supports all the old systems. Cloud Suite is more of a modern PAM as a service, so it runs a little bit different. It runs in the cloud. Roles and privileges stored are in the cloud and must have access, and it doesn't support the old system because it's cloud-based, right? Old systems sometimes don't have access to the cloud. Now, for my server PAM demo, I'm going to show you basically 3 kind of use cases and 4 if we have time. Linux to AD, join Windows machine to correct zone, and then run with privilege. Okay, so let me exit this. And let's get to our demo. Give me 1 second. Let me hide this bar here at the top. Sorry. There we go. All righty. So I have the demo is really short and we'll have a lot of questions. I see some questions already. So if there's anything at the end, I'm going to try to make sure that I leave time at the end. We have app server. As you can see, these are tiny virtual machines that I just basically, it's a quick demo. But the solution is tiny. The product is very small. It's not a heavy, big, where you need to basically have a lot of machines or anything like that. In reality, let's say you run it to test this in your environment. We just need access to your domain controller. And I'll show you why. And then we'll need some Linux database servers, an application, Unixes or whatever, machines for testing, and one machine where we can install the software. Okay, now I already have the software here. So what software are we installing? Well, before we begin, I just want to show you something very interesting that I always do. Active Directory users and computers. Everybody has seen this, right? This is my domain, Green Save Lab. And basically you can see here, I have a staff, right? I have some groups, security groups, teams. I created team contractors, team IT, team security. After installation, Delinea will have this thing called Access Manager. Now, what's very interesting about this is it looks very close to Active Directory users and computers. Why? Let me expand this here. There's the zones, global zones. But if you look at this, the more that we expand this, it is the same concept of Microsoft Active. Why do we do this? We want to make sure that anybody who installs this, it's easy for them to use it, right? We wanted to make sure that it's not something you're going to spend half a year learning or even longer. It's something that if you install this, you can work with it next week. So I'll close this because here's where all the magic happens. Okay, for my demo, I created a global zone for my domain. Now I can within zones create multiple zones, but I just created one global zone, and then I have a few child zones: Unix zone, web servers, and Windows zone. So Windows zone is, of course, where I'm going to put on my Windows machine. Web servers. In here, I can put both. The important part about it is, and under authorization, I can actually write policies for Windows and Unix. And again, we call everything Linux as Unix at Delinea. And for my Unix, it's on my Linux machines. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to show you something very interesting. We're going to start off with Windows. Why? Because AD already exists on Windows, right? So how can we make Windows better? So for my Windows zone, I have a machine that I added here, database server. Okay, under my computer, you can see here, right-click, AD properties. Within here, we pull the metadata directly. We don't do anything to users and groups. Actually, we do one thing. We just install this one simple OU, and everything is in here, all the Unix stuff. Windows, we just pull directly out of AD. Why am I showing this? Let's say you do a POC or proof of value, and you don't like it after a month or 2 months. All you have to do is just right-click on this after you uninstall that and just delete it. It will not break your AD. It will not make any changes. We don't do anything with AD. It's very important because the concept is how easy it is to incorporate, how easy it is to uninstall when people are trying to test this out. As you can see, it's a Windows 2000 server, member of domain computers, right? I'm not making this very complicated. That's my database server. Okay, anybody in security knows there's this very famous 3-letter AAA, right? Like authentication, authorization, and accounting. AD provides 1.5, right? It provides authentication, doesn't provide authorization. AD alone will not do authorization. And it does some accounting, but it's not real accounting. It gives you some logs, security logs, but it's not actual accounting. With Delinea, the enhancements to Microsoft AD is we provide authentication, authorization, and accounting. And here's how we do this. By putting the server in here. Now, server add, you can do it really simple. Prepare Windows computer, right? Automatically computers, find, and you can, let's say we want to do Windows ID platform, we can add it. That's it. That's how simple it is to do that. Well, we're going to mess with just one server here. Under authorization, you can see that for my authorization, you need 3 things. So as I mentioned, they always under authorization have the Windows and Unix. Well, this is a Windows, so we're just going to focus on Windows. Under application, to build a policy, you need 3 things. You need to build the application or desktop or network access, one of those 3. They need to define the role for that application and what the role actually is, and then assign the role to somebody. It's the same process you do in Windows. So when you do Windows permissions, you need those 3 things too. In here, you can see I already built Windows Firewall Management. It's the simplest one, easy one. But just to show you how easy it is to build applications, you do Windows application, Call this whatever you want. We'll just call this blah, blah, blah for now. We're not going to make this anything. But interesting part is match criteria. When you click add, you don't have to be an expert for application. You can just do import process, and I can import process from my local running machine. Or if I wanted to, and I know the IP to my database server, I can basically import this directly from within this server here. Okay, so my all of a sudden server is SQL. Basically, if I wanted to build an application for this, I can build it right here. Populates an SQL agent. I can even do file hash. I can do all these advanced things. Now, for demo, we don't mess with advanced, but again, you can verify all these things. Why is this important? Because you can import very simply. It'll populate everything for you. You don't have to know all the processes, where it's running, and everything. So when you're building this out, it will take a little bit of time because you'll probably pull out all these applications and whatever you need access to. But once you do it once, that's it. So cancel. I'll show you what it looks like on Windows Firewall. You can see here, application, match criteria, Windows Firewall. As you can see here, it's System32, right? WF MSC. It's an MMSC application. I'm not doing any special advanced features or checking any validation. Very important, run as. I want to run this as domain admins. Now, here's how Zero Trust comes in. When you, as a Windows, right-click on application, you have this run as administrator. When you run anything as administrator, you literally have to put in the administrative password. That will automatically hash everything. But administrators have to be run as domain admins. So here we can run this as a domain admin, but I can also put it at any other group I want, or I can do re-authenticate user. I have all these different options. I can even specify run this as a specific one single user. Okay. Now we're going to run this as domain admins. It's a Windows firewall. It should be run as a Windows domain. Once the application is built, again, we have to build a role. Now the roles can be something like, firewall management, which is I have here, and I'll show you what that does. But I can also run this as PuTTY application, Unix logins, Windows logins, different roles. So role doesn't necessarily mean application. You can have your Apache administrators or database administrators, or different role as who the actual role somebody's doing something. I'm doing per application. So again, creativity is on your end. If you look at the firewall management, first thing you're going to see is available times. You can limit roles that they can only run Monday through Friday, and all of a sudden they could be able to run Monday through Friday from 12 to 12 a.m. You can also deny. So now all of a sudden it will deny access to firewall management except for Sunday. It's kind of cool, but that's an advanced feature. But you can limit different roles, right? You can say that no one should ever restart the server in the middle of the day, right? Run the command. How many times has that happened to anybody? Now you can block it. No one will be able to do sudo restart some website or something, unless you need just-in-time access, right? Just at that time, because something's broken, then you can do that. Again, we have concept to system rights. Very important, authentication. If we have Cloud Suite, we can enable multi-factor authentication for this. I'll show you how that works later down the road. Audit is how we record sessions, right? So we can audit required, audit possible, audit required or requested. Audit possible is the most favorable one. Why? Some systems that are really old, and this actually works on even old Windows 2000. So if you have like IoT systems, that they still run Windows 95 and 2000 in IoT, this will actually record. Some systems don't support it just because of the memory or something like that. So audit, if possible, means audit required, but if for some reason the system doesn't support it, the agent is smart enough to not turn it on so it doesn't crash. Okay. Once we have this, very simple, we then basically add write. Add write means that application that we created, Windows Firewall, we add the write to the role. Okay, I already done that, so I'm not going to do this. And then we assign the role. Here you can see, let's expand this just a little bit. We can delete this one, that's from a different demo, but I have team IT. firewall management. What does that mean? Now, let's look at role assignment properties. Means that this role that I created earlier, and it tells you what the role is right here, can be assigned to staff IT, team IT, sorry. And then I can put special attributes. I'm not going to mess. That's, again, customization. You can even turn off that. I basically say that if I'm hiring a contractor, I don't have to go back afterwards to disable their account. I can automatically say, well, their contract ends in 3 months. After 3 months, they will not have access to this anymore. Pretty cool, right? So now I have team IT assigned. What does this actually look like? So let's go to our database server. And well, that's really quickly loading. I always like to show this to people. Under my staff, let's take a look at, this is Linda Scott. And you can see here, member of, she's team IT, team security. She is not a domain admin. Remember this. So she's not a domain admin. She doesn't have a alternative account. She doesn't have anything else. So just so people, you can see here, sorry, account, Al Scott. Okay. Now, if I go back here, we're going to log in as Linda Scott. And as Linda, basically, she has access. Now, as you see, right at the bottom right-hand corner, there's a nice little D. That's the agent already running. It's already pre-installed here. It's a small little agent. Doesn't take a lot of resources. The other thing that you can do is if you go to Task Manager, and if we go to CPU, you can see, sorry, the only one is direct audit. Our recording is basically a 5%. Now, how's our recording working? I'll show you that. But to explain it, every pixel move gets recorded. Again, right now this is moving, so it's recording, right? But if I do this and I don't do anything else, sorry. I don't have any right, so that's okay. Now, if I leave the screen like this, nothing's recording. Don't play YouTube videos on a server. Otherwise, you'll be recording a lot. But in a sense, okay, Linda has a job. She's team IT. Somebody opened up a ticket because she needs to make a firewall change. She knows she has to go to System 32. Make it quicker. Let's go to Windows Firewall. Okay, here's Windows Firewall. Old school way, if you log in as admin or if you don't, it's going to tell you this. We've all seen this, right? You have to be administrator to run this. Perfect. So Linda can't access that as a standard user. If you run as administrator, the feature's still there, but whenever our agent is installed, we disable that. It will basically it will always run as 0 privilege. Why is this important? Well, because they don't have access to unless we assign them specific access. And now we have this new feature, run with privilege. This is how they're going to be running it in the future. So run with privilege, all of a sudden you see it populates. And on top of this, I can put MFA. So if she needs to make a change, it's not just logging into the server. It would prompt her right before saying, please verify that you want to run this application. Okay. On a webinar, it's hard to show because I'm not going to show my phone. But all of a sudden now she can make any single port changes. She's team IT. She made changes to the server, and that's how we enhance it. Now I'm going to basically go ahead and log her off, sign out. She's done her job. We close it. Now, 2 things are going to happen. You can basically, if you're the manager, 2 hours later says, oh man, Linda didn't write down. She didn't tell me what she changed. All of a sudden, our server is not working. We have a problem. You can go to here, recording. This is why audit's very important, because you can go to here today and you can see automatically recording already shows up. It tells you who recorded, which server, at what time. Now, all of a sudden, I can double click this. And as you can see here, not only does it show my movement in the application where I clicked, okay, and it's got this magnifying glass that's kind of cool because you can kind of magnify when it's small. So you can magnify over applications and other things. So if you want to see something, you can. Anyways, that's just something new that they added recently. But on the left-hand side, we can show every single thing. Why is this important? Because if you're looking for who opened WF, right, System 32s, you can actually query that and look for that entire thing through the whole database. So if it was another admin, if it was anybody else, it will basically go ahead and do it. What's very important to compare to any other PAM is with Server Suite, if somebody goes physically to the server and logs in directly, not through any portal, not through anything, not through RDP, not through SSH. Remember, most of the PAMs are going to record only SSH or RDP. Server Suite will record physical access. Okay, so if somebody goes locally, physically to the server, the agent's running, it will still record. Okay, so we can record a session. And again, if you want, you can actually build this really cool under audit private query, and you can query. Here, I don't have too much queries, but if you can tell, if I go to properties, my query is to look for any cat command that was run on Linux or Unix systems. And basically, it will tell you who's run cat command on Linux. Okay, that's Windows. Just checking time, we're good. Okay. Very interesting now is Linux, right? So Linux, I'm gonna shut this down. Let's minimize Linux. Linux, let's go to Unix zone. Again, it's a little bit different to add a server here because they're not in our AD. So we can't do prepare Windows computer where we search for AD. To prepare a Unix computer to add in here, you have to basically do a computer join to AD, fill this out, customize it, put some in. You do this once. Once you add it, we'll focus on DB Unix because it's just easier. Let's do 80 properties. This one's already joined. Here's the cool part. You see the AD. If you go to operating system, we can read this is CentOS version 7. It reads like this. Unfortunately, CentOS reads like this, but it can read it. It tells you server spec. Under server spec, it's actually our Centrify connector. It's still the old name, so the Delinea connector. You want to be in the new name, but this is the connector that connects the AD bridging. Member of domain computers. Also, we're member of this Unix systems in this Centrify OU that I told you that we create. Remember, we delete that OU, everything's gone. We don't touch anything else. Okay, so we can now read Linux machines. It's part of AD. So we can also now means we can do authorization. How? Unix commands, SSH restart. These are just some commands I already built. Restart Apache, service restart. This is actually really cool, right? If you're a Linux guy, you can do systemctl restart asterisk, which basically I can wildcard everything. You can assign this to your, for example, domain administrator or senior admin, Linux admin guys, because that means they can restart anything, shut down anything. You can build all these commands that you want. What does this look like? Oh, you can do restrictive shells, run as root, right? You put this, or you can run it as wheel. You can run it as, now, anybody Linux, you know what that means, right? Run it as wheel. It means you run it always as root. So you can change the wheel group in here because you can add it to a wheel group. So now you don't have to run it as a root. You can just add it to the wheel. You can change environment variables and so on. So it gives you a lot of different things. But remember, once you set up once, that's it. Once you, same thing, we have a command, we define the role. And here I did something different. Instead of doing specific restart roles, like I did one here, restart Apache, I actually did Unix Service Manager. This is my Service Manager account. They are able to restart, shut down, and everything. Okay, from here, once the role is assigned to that specific command, I did again one other interesting thing. Instead of doing role assignments like I did with Windows, right? So here's Unix admins. I actually did it a little bit differently. I did where I created a group and I edit all the Linux machines, and my roles are a little bit differently. You see now I have Unix service managers, Unix admins, Unix logins. So I'm doing service groups instead of specific role groups. Kind of a little bit different concept, but I wanted to show you that anyways. Why is that important? It still ties to the AD group. So if I go to AD properties and go under my members, it says team contractors. I'm tying it to a AD group, not specific staff. So if I wanted to see that, I can go here, staff, and team contractors, and now I can see my members here. Why is that important? it's a lot easier in Linux. You're importing and doing so much more to do specific groups, overall groups. That's just the best practice. You don't have to do it this way, right? You can do it. You can do add members. If that's how you prefer, you can do anything you want. Add service accounts, whatever you want in here. Okay, just showing you best practice. Okay, so let's log in. Let's take a look at here. So DB Unix. Okay, we're going to log in as root first. Why would you need root account? This is where PAM is important. You go to your PAM, secret server, you retrieve the password that you have locked out. Nobody has access to it. It rotates and it changes every hour, right? So it's very secure. Password gets changed every hour on the system. I never know what it is. Well, this one is simple, just password 1 to 3 or 1. Okay, so for my root, I have it logged in. You only do this once you install the agent, the Centrify agent. Once it's installed, this one is already installed. I'm not going to, you run a yum command and basically you install it because it's in a repository. That's it. Once it's installed, you can create auto updates. Then you have something called AD info. This is our new command. I'm just going to show you this. From this AD info, it tells me it's DB Unix. This is the domain I'm joined. Default first site, right? The zone I'm in, so Unix zones. It was first connected, last password was 110. Centrify mode connected, licensing, everything's enabled. Very important. Okay, now I'm gonna exit root. Yeah, I don't want to be root, but I'll show you why I logged in as root anyways. Oh, actually, there's one more thing really quickly. Sorry, I should have just left it. Okay, root. Okay, anybody Linux knows where all the passwords are, right? So you go cat, etc, password. That's our local users. Just to show you really quickly, I don't. Right here is all my local users. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. Sorry, it's on the black. But you see A Foster, Help Desk, CFI Admin, Kim, and Sam. These were the local accounts that existed before we joined it to the domain. Why am I showing this? Here, under Unix data, under my zone, I go to users. And under Unix data, I have this cool thing, import from Unix. Now, if you have NIS system, you can import this from NIS. NIS isn't that popular anymore, but still exists. The most popular one is Unix configuration file. You can actually export your ET password, ET group. So for example, here, I'm just going to do one password really quick, just to save time. Next. Finish. Under my users, you get this pending import. Okay, let's align these by UID so it's just easier. You can see, you can see right here my UID A Foster, CYF Admin, Help Desk, Kim, and Sam match all of this. These are my local accounts. So when I'm adding this to the domain, I actually have the new cool feature. I can highlight these right here and I can do check status. Check status will check against the domain and see if it can make a match. And here it tells me CFI admin matches Centrify administrator, help desk matches Green Save users help desk, staff Kim Rogers, and staff Kim Nguyen. Sorry, I should have picked these names. But I can match these. Why is this important? Because I can then take through Centrify ID, map the local account with the AD account. So all future will be used through the AD. We never get rid of their history, their profiles, anything on the local. Why is that also important? What if our Centrify server suite dies, right? Let's say the server just shuts down. It happens, right? How do we get access to our Linux at that point? The AD connector is so smart that when you do AD info, this is why it's showing you this, that it's connected. As soon as this cannot speak, all the local accounts will basically turn back on, and you can still log in with root, like I did, or the local accounts that were there before. Just not AD accounts, right? But it's the same as Windows. You just, once AD is down, you can't really log in with a new account. Only the ones that were hashed there before. That's why hashing is such bad. Okay, so we'll leave this here. Okay, that's how you import users. Interesting part is after that, you can just do Control-Delete and import the next one. And you just do this once until you map them. Once you map them, they just show up here. And you can see UIDs local and they match our AD accounts through home directories, and then the canonical name for AD they match. Okay, that's how the mapping works. So we have this. Now let's log in with our contractor. I want to log in as a contractor because that's how I have it set up. Oops, not this one. And thank you for the questions. I haven't read them yet, but we'll get to them. Hopefully, yeah. So I'm going to log in as one of my contractors. I always forget this. Who's my contractor? Contractors, team contractors. Who's in here? That was Laura. I think I logged in as Laura before. What's your account name? It's easy. L Bennett. Okay, that's it. L Bennett. Okay, now why did I show you that local accounts? You know, L Bennett did not exist on this. So she just logged in. She has access. Now, what does she have access to? Well, remember that policy I built? I built a policy on here, and let's go back to it. Commands for my restart account for any service manager contractor accounts. I tied them to contractors. I just did that to just show basically that contractors can restart. They can't shut down, right? Because they're working on something, they need to reboot services. So if I do, right, she knows sudo. So let's say she does sudo system CTL restart, and easier one so I don't get kicked out or it doesn't break. I'll just do SSH servers and Centrify. And what's important, anybody who's Linux, they know this right away. Because she's not a local account, she's not in my sudo file, so she can't run sudo. So how do we run this as privilege? It's the same thing. We get rid of sudo. Now, sudo still exists because it's part of Linux. But with our agent, we created new commands in Linux. One, and I kind of like this, it's the old Centrify command, dzdo. You kind of get used to it after a while. Dzdo system CTL restart SSHD. And all of a sudden, nothing, just basically restarts, right? In Linux, that's all you get. Now you can add MFA to this, and I'll show you that in a second. You can add MFA so that it'll prompt you what it cannot do. Just to make sure, let's say we do dzdo cat etc password file. And it says, sorry, Alban is not allowed to execute cat files or etc password as root because she's not, we don't have this application out of here. Okay. So L Bennett she rebooted that service. She's done with her work. She exits. Again, audit analyzer, just a few seconds after I logged off. If I go back to my audit session for today, here's Laura Bennett. Now what's important, look, root, it's not a domain, it's a local account. It still records. Same as physically you would go, you can actually see bin bash ad info, right? You see the commands I ran. So I can actually record all the commands on this and query by anyone. And also with Laura Bennett, let's say I want to see make sure she did what she was supposed to do. She restarted the service, and all of a sudden you can see cat, right? Not allowed. This is why I had that query for cat file to see, who ran cat basically. Okay. So that's our Linux. We can now basically do it. Now I'm going to show you really interesting with MFA and a contractor. So that's Server Suite, and we'll come back with there's questions. Cloud Suite, as mentioned, is a cloud portal, right? So basically we have a cloud here. I'm already logged in, but just to kind of show you when you log in, before you log in, this is what it looks like. Still has the old Centrify Corporation, old logos. Again, we're still rebranding. Delinea's, we're turning one, I think, yesterday or tomorrow, something like that. Centrify has been around for years. So if you take a look at here, I have a login to my cloud tenant. And here you have a nice little dashboard. It tells you security overview, right? Denied login, denied feature access, who's logged in failed, why they failed login, where they've kind of failed. So you can see Poland or US. And then you say user logins. You can see all the successful logins. You can query all of this for the past 7 days, or you can do even more. So you can see kind of anybody that's logged into any servers. Very useful for contractors, right? Which applications they run. Palo Alto Networks, they were able to run this, right? So SQL Management Studio, Splunk, they were able to run this. Now remember, when they run this application from the GUI, it's just an HTTP S protocol that runs over the browser. Okay. So I have this configured. Now, for me, I'm going to show you first thing is we have all these different agents. So we have agents for browsers. We have agents for Red Hat, CentOS, Alpine, Rocky, all these different Linux, Ubuntu's, Windows machines. Centrify connector is a connector that you can install into your full infrastructure, and it can do search, connects to the AD, and it can search all the machines on the AD. Okay, I have two of those connectors. Let me show you those. So I have a connector installed here. Tells me which version. It's on the app server. Why am I showing this? This is the app server. Okay, it's already connected here. I don't have it connected on every single one of these servers. It's not connected on the DC server. It's not connected on this machine. It's not connected on this machine. It's just connected on one. The reason I'm showing this is this is all on the same network. These are part of all the same kind of domain network. So here's basically, once it installs, you'll see this admin portal. If you double click it, literally just, it's a shortcut to the GUI that I have on my browser. Okay, so it's just a full shortcut, except it just logs you right in because I am Alex Foster. It connects to the AD, so it knows who I am. Now, Alex Foster, the AD, that's here, doesn't have any privileges, right? There's nothing here because I don't have anything assigned. So let's work with my admin. So here I have disconnected. Now I can do full discovery of system, discovery accounts. I can discover basically Azure ADs. I can make full discoveries, exclude systems, do all this stuff. So I can discover Linux. I can discover anything. Now remember, Linux are now part of AD. So if I have an AD admin account, I can discover all of those machines. Well, I didn't run a discovery. I just added a few workstations manually. Oops, resources, systems. I added a Windows 2019. Right, so it's basically this server right here. Right, small little 4 gig 50, nothing major. And I had a Linux machine, Red Hat 7, this IP right here, and it tells me what's the client version, and it tells me if it's unreachable or reachable, when it was last tested. So you can always make sure right click, test connection, because it's a cloud protocol, right? It's HTTPS connecting to a agent. Remember, the agent's not on this machine; it's on the app server. But I can actually connect to this server. So how does this actually work? Well, I'm going to start up here. Well, before we get there, let's do access. I have some users. And I created a, and don't ask me by my naming. You guys can create hover. You can see here I have Alex, I have admin, all these different, but I created Z contractor. So I'm just going to copy this username. Oops. Z contractor. And this is a contractor that basically you can hire to do work. Oops, not this one. This one. So I have a different browser, so I don't have anything cache, cookies, and all that good stuff. And as soon as I click on Z contractor, it's going to say, please enter your password. So I'm going to put in my password here. I should have made these smaller, but it'll do. And then you see already authentication method, security question. I already have a two-factor setup. Now, I don't have anything else. Why? Well, because he's a brand new contractor. The security question you established. So it says capital of Poland. Let's see if I got this right. And I can log in. Okay. As soon as I log in, I can go to my profile because that's the instructions I was sent. And I can mobile authenticator. Scan the QR code, provide it. And any authenticator, mobile authenticator, third-party app authenticator will work. Google, whatever you want. Right? So as soon as I do this, I can then get rid of my question. I can change my own question. I can basically do just one question is required, but I can enforce instead of security question, I can use mobile authenticator app. Two-factor. We're going to stay on a question because I already have it. And on a webinar, the app and the pin doesn't, you can't show it as easily. Emails are great too sometimes, but then I got stuck in spam for a while. So we'll leave it at here. And if you take a look at, I already have, as an admin, this is me, admin. I have these systems. I have in my system under this Windows, you can see here I have permission, and I already added my contractor role. I didn't specify each contractor within, just the role. And then within that role, you can have multiple users that they can view the machine. Also, I create a privilege elevation for this contractor. And under policy, I have MFA. Now, for this beginning, I'm going to turn it off. I turn this off in a heartbeat. It pushes it to the machine. So if I go here, and let's say I'm good, I'm going to do test connection first, make sure I have no issue. Yep, everything's good. I'm a good contractor. And I'm going to say use my account to log in. Hopefully it doesn't crash on me, but it doesn't. I can log in. And what is this so important? Because Z contractor is a contractor that's logging into a domain machine without domain credentials. So he can work on this server. And he only has access to do one thing. Let's say this contractor needs to review the security audit. I'm sorry, I have this set to tiny screen because of my Mac. But let's see if I can actually, oops, sorry. Now we have event viewer. That's my job. I have a task. I need to review the security logs. Okay, event viewer opens up. Now I have view logs, security, and it says, okay, I can't view them. I don't have permission. So what do? Let's close it. And I'm gonna show you this without MFA first. I can run this more, run as a different user or administrator. Now, in Cloud Suite, we run this as administrator. Why? Because it works a little bit different. It populates this. There's no AD user, right? So we can't have an AD because it's not a privilege. But it has account option run with privilege. And now we click yes. It's going to say enter password. Enter, validates that, and boom, it opens up. Once it opens up, I can go to my Windows, security logs, and it works. I can review this. That's privilege elevation. Okay. Now I close this. I'm going to sign out just to be as a good contractor. Okay. I signed out. I'm going to go back to my admin. And you know what? We as a company decided we want to enforce MFA. I save this to my Windows server. And all of a sudden, if I just do this, use my account. Now remember, MFA to log into the portal was required. So logging into the server should not be required unless you have a specified. Me, I only have MFA policy for privilege elevation, which means I can log in. Oops. And I forgot to test. Let's see if this works now. Yep. When you make a policy change, sometimes you have to do that when you're too quick. Okay. So I'm logged in. Again, as a user, I'm going to start. Going to go to, now I already know to run as administrator. Run with privilege. Again, password. As soon as I put this in, enter security question. Now this can be the token, this can be anything. Again, that's how MFA works. And now per application, we can say that it validates this, and I can all of a sudden push this out. This will work on Windows. This will work on Linux. This will work on everything. I'm just gonna close this. Let's see Linux right here. See if I can actually use my account. Now let's just do this really quick. Reason I do this test, this is a demo that gets shut down every night or after actually 2 hours. So sometimes these things, even though you boot them on, they don't go connect. So in production, servers are on all the time. So you usually won't have to test connection. Okay, here I'm logged in. Okay, before we do, let's go here. Let's change the server. Let's go to this Red Hat. Again, permission, contractor group is able to log in. Okay, let's take a look at privilege elevation. I can do restart services, add it with nano, add it with VI. So we'll do add it with nano, this SSH config. And then policy, let's see, we don't have any privilege elevation right now. So let's do nano, right? It's easier than VI. SSH, SSHD config. No buffer. Why? Error reading, permission denied right there at the bottom. I forgot sudo, right? Control X. So we do sudo nano etc SSH SSHD, oops, and config. And now we put in our password. Again, this user is not in our sudo file. This user is not in our local file. This user is not in any of them. The system is able to inject user and password right into the system. I can get in here. Control X, I can make changes to my SSHD file configuration and restart services. Let's exit. Okay, session terminated. Let's put in MFA. Let's test connection really quick and use my account login. Hopefully we're not too quick. And we may be too quick.
Mark, we are slightly
I know, I see
over
that.
time.
Yeah. Let's
I-
get to question. Anyways, you basically get in and I'll prompt you for that. So I'm going to stop sharing. Let's get some questions because I see there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, do you see them?
Yep. Hold on, let me stop sharing here. Thank you for stopping me. Otherwise, I can go on forever. Okay. Hi, how do you protect access to network devices, switches, routers? Also, they are incidentally managed. Very good question. So there's two different ways. We can add within our portfolio, within the product, so within the cloud suite, we can add all the switches, we can add all the routers, and we can inject using PAM. We can do this with Secret Server, we can do this with other, but most of the best feature is Secret Server can automatically embed, rotate passwords on switches. Using SSH, again, with GUIs, we can rotate passwords to any of those routers. Palo Alto is a little bit tricky because Palo Alto doesn't have a native SSH, for example, but F5, all the different ones. Palo Alto, you have to go through their panorama because their SSH is kind of, it's not embedded, it's not native. If you use Palo Alto, that one's kind of trickier, but we still do it. It's still doable. You just have to kind of script a few questions. Which OS type is default for Delinea Access Manager to run? We are Windows, so the server suite and all the products are Windows based because of the SQL database. Now that's as of right now. We are also changing because we have a few cloud products that are going to be coming out. So those cloud products, there's talks about Postgres, SQL, and some other ones that we may be. So that may be changing a little bit. Delinea is new, and Delinea is building some new products that is going to be more universal across. So instead of having connectors from Thycotic or Centrify and everything, we're going to be building unified connectors. And then hopefully we'll be able to run across. But our concept is to be unified across all the platforms. Macintosh, Windows, Privilege Manager is the best example. It's to manage all the privileges around Mac, Windows, and Linux. Can I block users from recording screen? Yes. You control how, who, and who do you want to record. So users can't turn it off if you turn it off. But you as an admin control the possibility of controlling, recording all the sessions. So admin controls that. Let's say that recorded user is doing wrong things. Can I block them from Delinea console recording? So if they're doing something wrong, yes, you can actually kick them out. This is more actually in Secret Server does this very nicely. So for example, if you use PAM, just the basic, right, the foundation, you can watch, there's an oversight button. You can watch all the sessions and everything, what the users are doing. In Server Suite, same thing. You can do and record and then do the recording and then basically block them. Is there any way to manage Linux machines without joining AD? Yes. So Cloud Suite, you don't have to join them to AD. Cloud Suite is an agent you can install. This is a good use case because in Cloud Suite, for example, we manage all the Linux. And for example, let's say you have Azure, GCP, and AWS. Most companies do not have domains there, right? They don't want domains there. So there's no domains in Windows, there's no domains in Linux. Cloud Suite, you can connect your domain to the Cloud Suite and use your domain users to log into Cloud Suite portal and then connect to those servers. So yes, you can still join them, record them, and do everything without adding them to the domain. That's your Cloud Suite basically feature. Why you don't use SSH keys? I do. I just not in the demo, but you can use SSH keys. In SQL Server, we can use SSH key to rotate. In our server suite, we can use SSH keys. We can use regular passwords. The example here is to use domain users, but you can actually use domain users with SSH key also to log in. Again, the most option right now is user without SSH, but it's user with MFA, what's called a passwordless login. So MFA just uses your password. Delinea agent is required on every server, right? For example, I need to run DZ command. If it's on Linux, it's on those Linux servers, yes. So to be able to join Linux to AD, you need to have an agent on that Linux server. What about monitoring containers, Kubernetes? Yes, we work with all of them. We can, Kubernetes, the Linux agent will work. We have actually a huge gaming vendor that uses that, but we can easily put Kubernetes because it's just a Linux agent, right? The only thing is with Kubernetes, I wouldn't use joining them to AD because, right, with Kubernetes, I use OpenStack and I have a lot of Kubernetes. You spin them up, you take them down, they're too quick. So by the time you join AD, and sometimes, unless you're really good at scripting, you can do some Terraform scripting where it automatically installs and populates and joins. I've tried some cool stuff with Terraform where you can incorporate some things into it. Is MFA working also with YubiKey? Yes, YubiKey is actually one I use a lot. I have 3 YubiKeys myself, and that's half of my demos. But sometimes I just use the password whenever it's a webinar. YubiKeys are really cool if I'm doing a live demo somewhere. So if we ever get a chance to meet, I plug it in on the laptop and you can just connect it, YubiKey, touch it, and that's it. Will this solution help to control contractors' access to routers? Yes, this is actually main case. A lot of our customers have what's called the RAS service, so remote as a service, and it's a VPN-less connection. So contractor needs to work on, let's say, Cisco firewall, Palo Alto, or anything. They can log into the Cloud Suite, and then using MFA, log into the router, have access only to that router, and it's really painless. You don't have to create VPNs, you don't have to create access lists, you don't have to give him SSH access directly. You give him access to the portal, and you manage what he has access to, which router switches within that portal. It's really easy. And again, no access list, which working at Cisco on firewall, trust me, access list, nobody removes them after the customer or the contractor leaves. They live forever. Hopefully those are the questions. I don't know if there's any other ones.
Yeah, I don't see as well. So did you want to finish your demo?
I want to show the contractors for that. So if there's anything, I want to show that really quickly. So let me show that because I think there is actually, that's a huge use case. So let me share my screen really quick. So if you look at here, let me close this, sorry. So if you look at under systems, let me actually get here. So under systems, if you look at right here, we can add different. So we can do Cisco iOS and everything. So when I add system, I can add F5, generic SSH, right? So generic SSH with SSH keys or anything like that. Juniper, Junos, Unix, they all have different prompts, right? Junos works differently. Juniper than Cisco iOS or NXOS, right? iOS and NXOS even use differently. Palo Alto, not really on this list because, well, they have the panel, but again, it's a little bit different. So these are the different systems. But what I wanted to show you is I can actually build under apps, web apps. And I can do, for example, here I have Splunk. Now it's not deployed. I don't have an application ID or this is not a full, but in my Splunk under web apps, I can create all these different. I can do AWS services for my contractors. I can give them access to GitHub, Jira, Palo Alto, Splunk, Rackspace. But also, if you like customization, you can customize your own, different SAML accounts, OpenID, or you can import your own app. We actually have full documentation, SDK that you can actually build and import your own custom app. Of course, HTML5 app, right? Because it's going to go through a browser or SSH over browser, or however you want to call it. But let's say you have Palo Alto or Splunk. So in this case, I use Splunk because it's just easier to configure. This is on premises, by the way. How to easy? You can add SAML if you want. In this case, I'm not. I added the contractor role that he has access here. In my policy, let's take out the MFA. Right, I'm just gonna make this really quickly. I don't have an app gateway because this doesn't exist. And then workflow is actually the coolest part in this. For your contractor, you can actually add, so let's delete this person. You can create, specific user so that when your contractor connects, he can actually be, somebody has to approve him. So let's look at somebody under A. So Alex Foster was the admin on that. I can add him. So what does this mean? It means that when my contractor logs in on this, I can force that Alex is going to have to approve his access. He's going to have to put a reason why this contractor needs access to Splunk. And Alex is going to get either an app, we have an app, or he's going to get an email, or he's going to get something. He can send all of it. And he'll get a notification that he needs access. And I'm not going to say this right now because this one does, but how does this work? Here I'm logged in. I can go under my apps, web apps, and all of a sudden you see my Splunk. It says it's deployed and connected. Now I can basically click on it. Oops, sorry. The click is to edit, right? And launch. Once I launch it, now it's unable to launch because I don't have this app, but if this app did exist, I'll be able to actually connect to Splunk on-prem using this. Coolest part is I can actually incorporate the vault in here. I'm the admin. Vault, secret server vault. Why would you need to import the vault? Because, for example, my contractors sometimes don't need access. They don't need password to, let's say, the SSH router, right? We want to give him access without passwords so that he can go in and he never needs to know the password. He just needs to do the job. So let's say Cisco tech person or Palo Alto tech person needs access. You could just basically give him access. You can log in. And when I collect this vault, what I'm actually doing is I'm synchronizing with on-prem server. This is on-prem. It actually works based off of the connector. Remember those connectors I told you about? The connector's installed. I can actually connect. Now this one's connected because it's not booted on, because that lab is not turned on. But I can pick any single connector. And what it does, it actually synchronizes with the on-prem local ID, which means I don't have to build firewall rules or anything. That connector already built a specific HTTPS tunnel. So it builds its own tunnel and everything goes within that tunnel. So it's all secure within that actual tunnel. Other cool part that I always tell everybody, because everybody says, well, hold on, cloud. I don't like cloud. We send too much information to the cloud. In our cloud, just to show you, we don't send any information. This little right here connector talks to the AD and everything stays on this connector in the local. Under Centrify, where's my Centrify connector? Sorry, proxy. It's like a proxy connector, right? Proxy GUI. Once I launch this, now we hide it so no one can launch it, but if you want to, you can. It tells you if it's up to date, it's all managed. Under connector view logs, you can actually see all the information that's this proxy sends over to the cloud. And there's nothing. We do not, unlike some vendors will send a lot of stuff. We don't send anything. Everything is basically either within a tunnel secure and there's no communication, but if it's an AD account, we will send information to the connector and the connector has a list of all the policies. So the connector just downloads a list of the policies and it makes all the decisions locally. This is the one reason the governments love this system, because we literally provide you the information so you see there's nothing really going up there. Okay. So if somebody likes to read logs and be able to see this, more than welcome. We don't hide anything within it. Okay, and then once the connector is there, under admin portal, you can see my permissions. This is basically, sorry, I do use LastPass. I know it got hacked. I'm moving to another one. So when people make fun, but I did like LastPass for a long time. Anyways, you can see basically with our connector, we can actually, there's no Centrify connector. It's not enabled right now because that demo lab is down. I can actually map all of my secret servers into here. And what that actually allows me so that if my contractor signs in, so I'm going to sign out as this. Let me sign in as a different user really quickly. System resources access users. No. And let's do this guy. No. Hold on. All users. It's Alex. Okay. So Alex is a contractor, and he can log in here. I don't have MFA for him. It's just too easier to show up. And he doesn't have any access or anything, right? There's nothing in there. He does on their systems have one system. Now this system is down right now. Again, it's the lab. But I want to show you something very important. When he does, he can enter select request account. And when he does that, you see how there's an account name with VYOS system, password is credential password, and there's nothing else. Because what it does is actually, he can embed, instead of using his password to log into the system. So again, certain switches, routers, parties don't support. It's not a Windows machine. It's not a Linux machine. We need to use specific accounts. So then he will use this account to log in to this router. This is actually a router. This is a virtual router. And I'm basically saying select. It would ask him now. This lab is down, so it's not going to connect, but it would basically use, because it's pulling from our secret server from this vault, and we can integrate on-prem, secret server, cloud, or on-prem. So when we integrate this, we can actually pull, and this is going back to that entire presentation. Phase one, get a good PEM vault. Phase two, start evolving that entire and enhancing it. Privilege elevation, access control, because why? We're not hashing any passwords on any systems. So even if a system gets compromised, nothing got hashed, nothing's in the system, and your risk goes completely down. Okay. That concludes my demo. So I'm going to leave it. If there's any open questions or anything like that, I'll stop sharing here. If there's any other questions, please let me know. Is there any way to hack your, I see the last one. Is there any way to hack your system?
Can you suggest?
To be honest, we use Microsoft SQL for the backbone using AES 256. So as Delinea doesn't participate in the bug bounty, the reason for it is this is the one reason we use commercial SQL database. We rely on Microsoft bug bounty. So we use their solution for always on, always HA, right? SQL database migrations, everything built and everything else. So we rely on the SQL. That's where the vaults, that's where the data is stored, and that's where the bug bounty. As far as our programs, the GUI and everything. So cloud is always in Azure. We're a big, huge partner with Microsoft as of right now. So Azure is where most of our pods are tenants. We will use all the Azure bug bounties. Anything that Azure is basically for our SASE services. So our SASE is built directly on that, and that's why we're using that. So we don't have anything. If you ever, if anybody, now no one's ever gone into a PEM vault, but if anybody has gone, this is one thing coming from a third party. There's nothing you can do with it. First off is if somebody gets into the admin account, admin accounts are basically, they come with a break blast, right? So if you steal somebody's MFA, password, and everything, or somebody you go with a gun and point it and say, okay, log in here, and they log in, that's a hack, right? But as far as vulnerabilities within the system, no. The database is completely locked by the SQL. The GUI is completely locked. MFA is enforced everywhere on every login if you force that. If you create a password with 4 characters, anybody can hack it. Hopefully that answers your question, but I think the best bet
If I can add something to this,
yeah, go ahead, Adek. If you want
to hack our system, the easiest way is to hire a stupid admin guy. That's it.
Yeah, that's another one. I don't have this, but there's something actually really cool. In Secret Server, we are the only vendor that provides in Secret Server a hardening self-test. That's actually something that it's interesting. So if you want, reach out to us, reach out to basically take a look at Secret Server, or you can read about it. What it is, it actually does a self-evaluation of its hardening system. It tells you if there's proper SQL, if there's certificates, if all the hardening options you can put in there. So we evaluate the entire hardening and we tell you exactly how. Do you think companies follow this? The answer is no. Some do, right? Some are basically obliged by cybersecurity insurance auditors. They'll come in and say, why don't you have this on? Now, if you have a right reason, okay, that's a right reason. But we provide a self-service test that will tell you exactly how to harden the entire system. Hopefully that answers that question. Anything else?
I think
As
that's...
I see, yeah, we have no more questions and time actually. So I would like to thank you, Radoslav and Tomasz, for a great presentation, and also for the participants who joined us today. We hope this webinar was helpful. And if you still have more questions or would like to get to know more, please do not hesitate to contact us. And yeah, have a good rest of the day and see you in our other webinars.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.